I often will take a painting like this once it's dry and go in and add detail. But to tell you the truth, I think there's something so evocative about the shapes that I'm seeing on the paper right now. I'm celebrating World Watercolor Month with a new video every day in July. Hi, I'm Angela Fehr. Today's World Watercolor Month video is inspired by the prompt for July 28th, which is splatter. Boy, this is going to be fun. Let's get started. Okay, as we're setting up, I just wanted to mention that I have friends who are participating in this World Watercolor Month challenge as well. And so once you've watched this video, click on the link in the description below the video to see what other artists are making using our prompt of splatter. Splatter is my favorite thing. I love using my spray bottle to mist my paper when I get started with the painting. I'm splattering water on the page right now. And then I'm going to use that splatter to drop some color into the page. And this is one of my favorite ways to start a painting kind of intuitively. We can use that moist paper then to guide the movement of the pigment. And so I'm doing much less with my brush. We can use a wet brush, and that was a very wet brush to splatter, so we get some movement. Water equals flow in watercolor, and so when I splatter, I create some real randomness, which is really good for my intuition. It keeps me from creating anything that looks too rigid. And it invites that element of unexpectedness and surprise. So we're going to let splatter be our leader today. And so as I paint, I'm just going to use my spray bottle, use my brush to splatter paint. And actually I have this little pipette, which we can use as well to bring a little bit of splatter into the painting. If you're wanting to invite more splatter into your painting, it's a good idea to get a feel for how your brushes are going to handle the attempt to splatter. You can see that this brush doesn't want to do much. And so the logical thought is choose a round brush. And one of my favorite brushes is my number 10 Versatile Rigger brush made by Escoda. And this brush splatters, and then another favorite brush is my Loose Goose Dagger Striper from Cheap Joe's Art Stuff. And if I splatter with this brush, it's a little insane because it's so whippy that I end up getting just a crazy amount of splatter and I have no control. And yet I'm an artist who does a lot of splattering. So how do I do that if I have now gone through 3 brushes that I don't like? I'm going to show you that in a second. But first we're going to just release some of this color so that I have a few more options, because there's just a lot of kind of cotton candy on my paper right now. Oh, I'm just going to watch that move. Pretty. And then we'll just tilt it right off and give ourselves a bit of an underpainting. Kind of leaning toward the idea of floral today. Even though we've been really working with the same reference photo all month, there is a good time to shift directions. Sometimes you do get a little bored with one subject, or sometimes you get a little stuck and you're painting the same thing over and over again in the same way. And that's when it's nice to just choose a different subject for a while. I'll choose a different color as well, little ultramarine blue. Most of the time when I want to work with splatter, I'm going to choose just a basic round brush. And that's going to give me a little more control on what goes down on the paper. This ultramarine is kind of fun. I like the way that it's splattering onto the wet paper. Can you see how it's not so crisp as it might be if the paper was more dry? So I just have a little bit more control when I splatter with a round brush. I also try not to hit my brush too hard. I'm going to splatter a little bit of the yellow that's already on there. If you're splattering really hard, what you'll end up getting is a line of dots, droplets, rather than a more gentle kind of randomized response. So that's something to think about as well. And having the right amount of moisture on your brush is going to make a difference there also. So now we have some color on the paper, more of an underpainting than anything else. I'm going to tilt again just to get, the water is tending to want to pool right in here. And we're at this underpainting stage, so we actually have, it's this little line of splatter actually made a really pretty, could almost be a stalk, one of those flowers that's on a stalk, maybe a delphinium blossoms. Pulling in some green gold right now. So we're going to take a pause from the splatter. We've got a lot of moisture on the page, and then we start to develop the painting, or at least the underpainting. It's very wet still. And so when I touch my brush onto the page, it wants to kind of incorporate itself into the painting. It's bleeding into the page. I'm going to add a little ultramarine blue to the green gold mixture in my palette. And we'll bring in some of that to the painting. And I'm painting leaves. Paint a line, widen it out, flick it up. A little pure ultramarine can actually add to the leaves as well. You don't have to always mix, because it will mix on the paper if the paper is moist as well. So I'm getting greens even though I've got mostly ultramarine on my brush right now. Truthfully, most of the time when I paint florals, I wouldn't paint them in a landscape format like this, but we're just going to see what we can do with it. Let's pull in some violet, or something that's like a violet. I've got some of this Wisteria by Daniel Smith. Let's spatter that on the page, and a little bit over here. That's kind of a inky consistency of paint. Let's make a really kind of watery brush and watch how that splatters on the paper. Still pretty fine, not giant droplets. Go a little wetter yet. There we go. Getting some bigger drops then. And that original ultramarine blue splatter has almost disappeared. Oh, that's not really doing what I want it to do. Let's just try touching a very wet brush into the paper in a few spots and see what that does. And I'm going to splatter over here. What happens is at this point you start to get an underpainting I'm going to need to do some negative painting in order to make it come to life, to help the painting to take shape. I'm going to be painting, and by negative painting, I'm really painting around some of the defining elements of the painting. For me, negative painting takes concentration. It's not an easy thing to do. And it really helps to just take your time and not work too quickly. So I might be looking at some of the shapes here. There's some shapes here that could be leaves, and maybe I want to put a little bit of background behind those leaves. So I paint around those two leaf shapes there and actually make those leaf shapes kind of come to life. I imagined them and then I painted around what I imagined. I can do that with tone-on-tone color as well, with a little bit of green gold on my brush, fairly dry brush. There's a lot of green gold in the painting, and I can use darker green gold to create some kind of tone-on-tone definition around some of these shapes as well. And then maybe I paint a few little stems here And that would be not negative painting. So I guess positive painting, you're painting the shape. And so I kind of dance back and forth between negative painting and its opposite, painting the object and then painting around the object to define it. And all of this spatter isn't really making a flower happen right now, so let's see what we can do with that. I've got a little bit of ultramarine on my brush. Maybe we'll put a little bit of wisteria into the mix as well. It gives us kind of a periwinkle color. And I'm just going to think about maybe some flower petals. Maybe could be a delphinium, could be lilac-ish, could be a lupin. What we're looking for is an impression of sunlight and floral, much more than defining this is this kind of flower in this at this time of year and so forth, and getting everything botanically correct doesn't interest me that much. Flowers for me are symbolic. When you think of a flower, maybe you're thinking of the way they bloom in all kinds of environments, especially for me here living in northern British Columbia. Our climate's very harsh, and the fact that we have flowers growing up in the alpine that are just the most magical colors, the brilliance of the lupins in the mountains, and the abundance of color that we see up there, those are things that symbolize resilience to me. The beauty of just doing what you're made to do, no matter where you've been placed, where you find yourself. Those are things I think about when I look at flowers. One thing I have to also think about when I'm painting an arrangement like this is how does everything fit together? And it's really neat. Right here we have a leaf with some veins, so that's working. I'm seeing these little marks that I made have made a flower form come to life here as well. There's a little bit that's kind of unresolved in this area because it is the wettest part of the paper, but I think that I can now start to maybe define a little bit of that shape as well. Not too much. I want it actually to be pretty soft, but we do want the idea suggesting that there are more flower shapes. There's connections in those shapes. I'm actually feeling quite happy with it just the way it is right now. And I'm going to do very little more to finish this. I often will take a painting like this once it's dry and go in and add detail. But to tell you the truth, I think there's something so evocative about the shapes that I'm seeing on the paper right now, just the way they are without a bunch of details spelled out, that I think it would be silly of me to feel like I needed to define it with any kind of crispness and rigidity, especially considering that our prompt for today is one that's based in kind of this idea of randomness, splatter, softness, letting the chips fall where they may, perhaps. Okay, yeah, let's add a little more splatter to just kind of finish things off. I'm going to use the lavender rather than the... Oh, and I'm tempted to change my brush one more time. I think I should... We're going to try the quill brush. We haven't done it yet. So a quill brush holds a lot of water. Really wet. So it's going to cast some wet splatter on the page. It kind of works. I wanted to use this pipette and we never did get to it, so we're just save that for another day. Let the painting tell you what it needs. Sometimes that's the more important lesson. A little bit of pure ultramarine just to kind of top things off, just to emphasize the kind of middle of this flower form. I'm just going to darken it up a tiny bit. My brush is not very wet right now. The wetter your brush, the more moisture is going to push out into the page. Going to let it be, going to let it live just the way it is. And it's always a nice surprise when a painting kind of tells the story you wanted it to tell, without a ton of spelling everything out, without a ton of forethought even. And I'm feeling that about this one. Okay, just a reminder as we've wrapped up here, that really was a fun little exercise in wet and wet painting and splatter. But as we wrap up, do take a look in the description below the video for a link to supplies that I've used today and the list of colors, as well as the link to the other artists who are participating in today's World Watercolor Month video challenge. And don't forget, when you post your work on social media, use the hashtag World Watercolor Month. We are heading out of towards the end of the month, and it's just been so much fun to paint with you this month. Do continue to check back. I'll be posting daily videos right until the end of July, and I look forward to seeing you here again tomorrow. Bye for now. Thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with more watercolor advice you can learn from. Don't forget to include the hashtag World Watercolor Month when you participate and post watercolor art in July.